Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Oh. So we are going to discuss about the scaling techniques and why we need scaling and all, and how it helps the scaling in our research process and all that we'll discuss. So whatever is minimum things is required for all of you, I'll just discuss on that. See, if you look into scaling, scaling is a process of assigning the numbers of symbols to the various levels of a particular concept that we wish to measure. Generally, so whenever we are want that something which we want to measure, which you cannot measure in a exact quantity and all these things, we used to develop certain scalings and we used to assign those things under that scaling, and then we analyze that this much percentage of people falls under this under this scaling and that scaling, and also sometimes we use the regarding perception and all these things, your satisfaction level, perception, and the participation labels. All these labels we use to calculate also in the process of scaling. We'll discuss in details. The scales are many types and they are put to use in a wide variety of social research and different kind of research. Mostly if you look at the research, specifically the psychological research and all, they usually use mostly the scaling techniques. So in many types of research also we are using the scaling technique. It depends upon the topics on which you are working, and accordingly you decides whether you are going to take a scaling techniques as a method for your research or not. Miller, as a social scientist, first identified a large number of scales, including the scales of social status, how to measure the social status, the scaling for that, the social participation of the publics, the peoples in different programs, the morals, job satisfaction, to what level the peoples have satisfied with their jobs, and also suppose a project is being implemented, if you want to measure the people's satisfaction of the jobs, sorry, of the projects which is being implemented. And sometimes what we do, we also scale off the people's satisfaction to the governments. Suppose the government is being introducing the various projects, various schemes, and we are also measuring whether the common men are satisfied with these things or not. During the time also we used to do that. Then alienations, marriage adjustment, etc. also we measure through different scale. One may ask as to why we need to construct a scale to measure something that is easily observable or obtained. Sometimes what happen, we take different kind of scaling, but sometimes people ask us, there are something which is can be easily measured by using different techniques, can easily observe also by interacting with the peoples. Then what is the need of taking some defined techniques, that is scaling techniques, to measure the things which is can be easily obtained or which can be easily observed by seeing that. So then social research information do not easily flow, which may be classified and analyzed or compared. Generally what happens in social science research, the information do not easily flow, means whenever we are taking the information from the from others, it is not that information whenever we collect from the people. Suppose if I'm asking, are you satisfied with your the present job? Sometimes what happen, uh, if I'll ask them yes or no, the people may not exactly give you the answer yes in the form of yes or no. But if you develop a scaling techniques, like I'm fully satisfied, uh, or I'm satisfied to some extent, then okay, it's fine. Then I'm not satisfied, I'm not at all satisfied. So if I develop a 5 scale techniques, then I can really find out that how many peoples are having the satisfaction level in what levels. Means you see, if I measure the satisfaction levels in yes and no, this will not bring a solution, because if somebody is having little bit resentment, he may tell that okay, I'm not I'm not satisfied. So that means if you look into this, suppose at least from whenever we are trying to measure the job satisfaction, suppose forget about job satisfaction, when we are telling that suppose the government is implemented a scheme and we are measuring that in the rural areas regarding the people's satisfaction to the job. So there what exactly we are doing, when we are measuring these people's satisfaction to the job, there mostly we are looking into the two things. Means I'm asking the people's what is your satisfaction levels to the job. So there what we are doing, I'm asking that is highly satisfied, uh, satisfied to some extent, okay, it's fine, life is going on. Then not satisfied, not at all satisfied. So there you see, so means the person who claims that or the person who are in the average, sometimes if you go with yes and no, he may tell no or he may tell yes also. And the person who is telling no could have told no, now he is telling okay, not satisfied. Then some people are telling not at all satisfied, that is difference. But some people are telling okay, satisfied, but some people are telling highly satisfied. So that means there is also difference, that if I tell okay, satisfied, but and somebody else told that I'm highly satisfied, there is difference between okay, satisfied and then highly satisfied. But by making the scale, I am trying to distinguish within this different means varieties within the yes and no. Through that, what can happen? So, if we found that this project has given the satisfaction through yes, suppose yes, through yes, if I am taking, suppose 50% people told that okay, sorry, suppose 40% people told that okay, I am satisfied with this project, and suppose the 60% told not satisfied. But when I am telling that not satisfied, within the not satisfied, okay, I'm not so satisfied, I found that 50% people told that I'm not so satisfied, and only 10% people told that okay, I'm not at all satisfied. So that means what I can understood, okay, that means it is not that the project is completely wrong mode, that because the 50% people told that I'm not so satisfied, so that means there is a scope to make them satisfied. So that what I can do, I can improve. We can find out what are the problems in the implementation, what are the problem in the mechanism of implementation, what we have to improve, what we have to do, how to increase the satisfaction level of the public. But if I could have gone for yes and no, I could have found that okay, 60% people are not satisfied with this project. Then what could have happened? Then I could have thought that okay, it is better to close this project because 60% people are not satisfied. So here what I have to do, the scaling will give you the complete details of the satisfaction level. The complete, it will give you a very clear picture. That is the main idea of taking the scaling techniques. It will give a very clear picture. Uh, so, uh, because what is happening, we have to classify. Unless until we classify, we cannot compare it. So, if for example, we are studying the social status of two groups of people, in order to compare the two groups, we may analyze social status on the basis of person's material possessions, like social status, material possession, the amount of community participation, his or her education, family background. See, uh, because you see, when we are calculating the social status in the society, uh, mostly what happens generally in the research, sometimes we get confused. Only we take his economic status and then we thought that he's a highly established person. No. So it is one of the theme or one of the material which we calculate when we calculating the social status of a person in the society, but it is not the entire things. Means the material possession is not the ultimatum. It is one of the theme, one of the agenda, that material possession is required to measure somebody's social status. But along with that, we need the amount of community participation, his or her education levels, his family background, all these things also we calculate while calculating his social status in the society. But when it comes to the comparison of such data for a large number of people of each group, it poses some difficulties. Right? But when it comes to the comparison of such data for a large number of people of each group, it poses difficulties, because you see, when we're bringing the data from a large group of people, so we face lots of difficulties in measuring these things. A person or a group may have higher education but lower material possession. Getting a point? A person or a group may have higher education but lower material possession, while the other group may have the converse. Because what is happening, you will see that there are some people in the society who are highly educated but not get much social status in the society because of their lower economic or lower material position. Because generally in the society also sometimes the persons who are mostly, this is a general mindset of the person who are economically rich always try to influence everything and get more status in the society. And while the other group who are highly educated but not having much economic status in the much economic position in the society gets lower status. So given this qualitative differences, how do you quantify them? This is the main concern in the scaling. Because why we take scaling? So because here what is happening? So this is a qualitative differences. Is having somebody is educationally rich, somebody is economically rich, but how will distinguish his status in the society? There we cannot qualitatively make a differences there, but we have to quantify them so that the status can be reflected. So means how to quantify those things. Moreover, the different characteristics and properties of the concept of social status may be distinguished differently among the respondents, thus making it difficult to arrive at a precise statement about social status. We have to think about that, means we have to adopt some precise techniques to how to develop such a techniques so that we can really measure the social status of an individual. Social concept have generally different dimension and they need to become in one package. Social concept have generally different dimensions. There are different dimensions that are there in the social concept and they need to become in one package. We want to bring them into one package so that we can make it. To take another example, suppose that a research problem requires the comparison of two persons or groups with their political attitudes towards a particular political party. So you see, whenever we are measuring a comparison we are making within two person or two groups with their political attitudes towards a particular political party. So when we are asking the publics that what is your opinions towards the present governments or towards the particular political party, how they're doing. So there what we are doing, or whenever we are comparing, suppose two political parties in the context of the people's opinion, people's approach, people's perception to the two political parties there, we have to also require some case scaling techniques through that we can really find out that what exactly the people's perception and also people's attitude and people's view on these things, because only until we have a kind of measuring techniques through scaling, then it is difficult to measure. Thus, while collecting the information, we may find that some oppose all the policies of the party. Some may oppose a few policies but favor the rest. Getting my point? Because you see, while if I ask that would you like the suppose the different political parties have the release their manifesto during the election periods. So what I'm telling here, if you ask somebody with yes and no, so then it is very difficult to measure, because you see all the political parties whenever they come with their manifesto, some people there you'll never find any rational man who opposed all the manifestos of a particular party because of these ideological differences. No, it is impossible. Because what exactly happened? We always accept some of the points and oppose some other points. So in that line, what I'm telling, so there it should be very clear if there is a scaling techniques. I can, because I may be uh, supporting some of the agendas of a particular party while I am opposing others. Means I may oppose one or two, I may accept the other, the most of the agenda of a party, and at the same time I may be accept one or two, I may oppose then all other agenda of a particular party. So what I'm telling, so means if it is in the scaling form, the things will be very clear rather than in the form of yes and no. Thus, while collecting the information, we have to find that some oppose all the policies of the political parties and some may oppose few policies but favor the rest. Some may actually condemn the policy of a political party but support it because they do not like the other party. Get my point? Means suppose I may not favor the policies or the agenda of this party, but rather I have no option. But I because I don't like the other party, and some may support a candidate but oppose the party's policies. Getting a point. So sometimes what happen? So generally, whenever the election and all these things we takes, we found that sometimes we oppose a political party, but the people, if you look into the survey, sometimes what happen, uh, you see, if you look into our general election in the country, which held in the last year also, most of the cases in the different survey, we found that people were highly dissatisfied with the local candidates who contested as an MP. People also not happy with the performance of the local MP, but they voted, or why they voted? They voted that we want that Narendra Modi should be the Prime Minister of the country. Means their perception was that we want Narendra Modi should be Prime Minister of this country. They were having no option, but they voted for the local MPs whom they never like also. So that is my the concern of telling here, that when we go for a scaling kind of things, we found that because within the no and within the yes, there are lots of things comes within the categories of no and within the categories of yes, and then how to club them and how to go for a real justification of our arguments. So means there the people, if you could have asked, when we asked them, do you like, are you satisfied with the performance of the local MPs? The people told no also. Are you satisfied with the uh, prime ministers? Yes. So here we see, so then why they voted? They voted because they want the prime minister to back again to the post. So that's why the people voted. They forget about the uh, the answer they have given yesterday, that they are not happy with the this present MP. So from that, if you take that, okay, we will voted means they are happy with the present MP. It is not like that, because tomorrow if you take that, okay, yesterday you voted the present MP, so that means you are all happy with the performance of the present MP. It is not like that. They are not happy with the performance of the present MP, but rather they want to vote. Suppose like because in India now you'll see the election and all these things in different states and in our country, as if we are moving towards the kind of American system of politics, because generally the people are seeing the candidate at the center, means who is the candidate for the chief minister, who is the candidate for the prime minister. So they are simply comparing who will be our leader at the center, means at the state, rather than comparing who will be our leader at the local level. But at the same time also, whenever sometimes you'll see some in some constituency, people also voted. Irrespective of party, people also saw the candidates and they found that okay, this candidate is well accepted, this candidate is a nice person, and whoever whomever he or she maybe belongs to does not matter, but people voted. So so I can give an example here also. When in Odisha last time when the general election held, the Bhubaneswar constituency, people found that all these MLAs of Bharatiya Janata Party got defeated, but the MP got won, because there are almost irrespective political parties. The MP won from the BJP, but the MLAs, almost all the MLAs from BJP lost in the same constituency, though vote was simultaneously continuing. While people are voting both for ML and MP, the result was different. There you will find that the irrespective political parties, people thought that okay, a genuine person is contesting, she is very much popular in the state while she was serving as an IS officer. So she was very much connected to the grassroots level. So people voted. So means irrespective of party, the people voted. So that's what I'm telling. You see, means the people behaved differently because while the same person was voting for the MP, they voted differently. When they voted for MLA, they voted differently. So means here they are looking also two things: who is the leader at the center, or who the leader at the state is going to rule. And at the same time, some people are also coming out of this political ideology and voting the candidates based on their public perception. So see, now all those who do oppose the political party, but each one has his or her own qualitative differences. Get my point? So means here, even if I oppose somebody, but when I saw the candidate, I used to look, I used to compare between the candidates, irrespective of political party, because generally the common man's, mostly the educated peoples, which is in India, we usually tell that 20% is called as a floating votes, because the rest 80% are party-based votes, the cadre-based votes, and 20% is generally the floating vote, which is usually by the educated peoples, because educated peoples usually go for give the vote on the basis of floatings. So they usually see the candidates, and irrespective of political affiliation and all, they see the candidates, and if they found that candidate is fine, they vote. And sometimes either they look into the candidate at the grassroots level or the leaders at the central levels or the state levels. So accordingly they vote. How do we take into account this difference and to be precise in a measurement? So means when there is a differences in the public perception and the public opinion, so how to measure those differences? Because unless and until we measure those differences, we cannot come to the real calculation that this much percent people are happy, this much percent people are not happy. No. For this, the measurement of data by scaling method is used. So to measuring all these differences, what do we do? We use the scaling methods, and that generally we use to measuring these basic differences. Scaling method come to play an important role when one wishes to know and make use of simultaneously a number of observations on each respondent or any other units of analysis. So whenever we want to analyze the things in a very proper way, and we want to, then we calculate the number of observation and of each respondent, then only we make a clear comparison. So what really matters is the total picture and not the individual observations. So I'm not bothering about the individual observation. Here our concern is that we want to see the total picture, what the total picture of this, total picture of what we are going to get. It is not that I am just calculating the individual things and all. It is, however, necessary to emphasize that while constructing a scale, sufficient care should be taken to ensure that it serves as a proper, appropriate, reliable, valid scale for measuring the concept. It is, however, necessary to emphasize that while constructing a scale, sufficient care should be taken to ensure that it serves as a proper, appropriate, reliable, valid scale for measuring the concept. Means while I will develop the scaling techniques, I should be very much clear and very much conscious that the techniques which I am going to use, it should be very proper, appropriate, and that scaling technique should be reliable, and the scaling technique should have a validity, because if it is not having validity, so then I cannot properly measure the concept. In this regard, it is essential to understand the general problem in scaling, verifying the scale and checking its continuum and validating the scale. So what exactly I have to do? So means while I'm using my scaling techniques, so I have to understand the general problem in the scaling techniques, and I have to verify the scale, and while also I'm validating the scale, because unless and until I verify it properly, unless and until I understand the problem properly, so then the real problem will come out. General problem scaling. What exactly the general problems we found while using the scaling techniques? The difficulties of the scaling process can be discussed and under three groups to decide what are the appropriate elements or pieces to ensure that they are logically related and all refer to this same attitude dimensions. So means these are we are here focusing that what generally the problems, usually the general problems comes from the scaling and how to overcome this means. See what the first difficulty is, what are the appropriate elements or pieces to ensure that they are logically related and all refer to the same attitude of dimension. So means I should take my scale in such a way that man all these things should be logically related and uh, and also there should be a certain kind of distinction between the different scales because if there is no much differences in the scales which the dimension of the scales which I am using, then again it will be very confusing. The task of fitting this together into a meaningful whole. And what I have to do? Means when I am suppose satisfied, not satisfied, highly satisfied. So means I should, while I am taking the scale into different categorization, so I should reflect that as a whole that should have a proper meaning and all these problems should be clearly defined and all. Otherwise, the major problem will come up in the future. To test the properties, particularly the reliability and validity of the scale, thus constructed. So means while we are doing for a scaling technique, also while I am doing the pre-testing and all, I should look into that whether my scaling techniques is giving me reliability and validity is being constructed or not. If I found that it is not able to bring the reliability and validity, then it will not going to give justice to my thesis. So definition of the continuum. See, the measurement of a scale always assumes existence of a continuum of some kinds. So here you see what I'm measuring uh, means here continuum in the sense that while I'm putting any concept which I'm going to means making certain differences and all means I should clearly mention that what exactly it is going to reflect. And if it is not clearly mentioned, then it is quite difficult to measure. The nature of continuum must be inferred from the character of the items which are included in the scale. Means what exactly I am going to measure, whether that is properly reflected or not, and what is exactly whenever using the different concept for the measurement, what exactly the basic difference lies within them, and because only and until these are the things which are very clearly reflected, it will be difficult. Further, it is important that the items which are not logically related should not be included in the scale. Means which I am taking in the scale, all these items, whether it's 5-point scale, 6-point scale, 7-point scale, 3-point scale, doesn't matter. But the question is whether all these things are logically related or not. Because the different scalings which I have identified, it should have the logical connection to each other if we want to bring a holistic perception, holistic view. If we are setting a continuum, so then we should look into that there should be all these things should be logically related and also have a proper understanding. If unrelated items are included in the scale, it results in a confusion within the scale. If items are not related to each other and I have just for the sake of taking, I have taken and all these concepts are not properly related to each other, then the entire scale will be confusing and we may not get the exact things which we are going to obtain. So in order to determine whether an item is logically related to the rest or to the thing to be measured, the researcher has to have a thorough knowledge of the subject that is being measured. So what I'm telling, suppose whenever we're taking the perception, so if in the perception, so I will put some other things in the scale. So means exactly what I am measuring should have a logical relation with the what the things I have kept in the scale. Suppose if I am measuring something and something else I have kept in the scale, then also the answer will be different. So means what exactly I am measuring, accordingly the scale should be constructed. And means the things which will be kept in the scale should have a logical connection with what exactly we are going to measure. Because if I am measuring something else and my scale is something else, then it is really the problematic and people will be confused. A social scale should contain items that are different yet related to each other. There are different in the sense that each item may represent one aspect or dimension of the subject or things may be measured. Because you see, while I'm looking at the scale here, what I'm doing, we are keeping the different, keeping all these items into different segments. So here what I'm doing, when we are measuring the one aspect or one dimension of a subject, and there I'm linking, there I'm understanding the things from a different sense, that means that each item should represent the subject which is going to be measured. However, every scale consists of items which are only a sample of all possible items. Every scale consists of items which are only a sample of all possible items. If it is not there, then the real problem will happen. It is because of this reason that the researcher has to have full account of all the items, without which he or she can have no confidence in the representativeness of all items which he or she has to select. See, so what I am telling here, while we are developing a scaling techniques, the researcher has to be completely clear that what exactly he or she is going to measure. Then accordingly he has or she has to identify the different items that is going to measure. And once all these things are very much clear, uh, then only he can clearly mention all these items and from which he can select and measure. Thus, if a researcher has to measure adequacy of housing condition in a town or city, he or she has to take two basic steps. First, he or she has to make a logical analysis of the hypothesis of such good continuum of housing adequacy, that very good, fairly good, good, not bad, bad, very bad, etc. Means what I'm telling, so means he should have a first a logical analysis of the conditions of those houses in the city. Because if I am not having the knowledge about the housing condition in a town or a city, then when I will start a scale and start measuring, then the real problem will come. So because if I am having a knowledge, I can develop the scaling mentioning very good condition, fairly good, good, because there is also differences between very good and good. There is huge differences. Very good, the house condition is very good. Somebody told good. So in between very good and good, there must be some place where some people maybe feel that okay, it's good, but if somebody told oh it is fairly good, so that means there is a differences, means it is good, but I'm not telling it is very good, but there is a difference between very good. There is some space is there between very good and good, and how to capture that option. So that's why we kept fairly good. Suppose we told okay, these houses are not bad, and then bad and very bad. Because if I tell okay, somebody asked me how you are satisfied with the house which is being constructed by the government in this and where you are staying, I might not, I might be having a confusion stage. I may tell that okay, I may not tell the good, I may not tell okay, not so bad, not bad. But means, and somebody told okay, it is bad. So that means, do you want to think that the person who replied that not bad and bad, there are not differences? Yes. there is differences, because the not bad person are not so negative in his reply, rather he is a little critical, and that okay, it is not so bad, but it could have good if something could have taken care, because while he's telling it is not bad, he's having an apprehension that if something could have done, it could have good. But when somebody is telling bad, he's becoming a little he's becoming more critical, and he's not having a positive reply to the positive perception to the buildings. So because he told it's okay, if somebody asks me, suppose I will tell okay, it is bad, it is bad, and somebody will tell it is very bad. So that means and if somebody is telling not bad, so means he's average, he's happy, but with he could have told good if something could have added. Here, secondly, a clear definition of what is meant by housing adequacy, that should be clearly defined. Both these steps should imply clear understanding of housing and its problems. A second important factor to be considered with regard to the continuum to be bear in mind the nature of the population which is to be measured, because see, that is highly important, the nature of the population, because if the nature of population I'm not keeping in mind, I'm taking the population from various segments, and I'm not covering the samples from all the segments, so then my answer will be also wrong, because the people coming from a very suppose some people are having I am only measuring the people with rich potentiality, but anyhow they by any chance they got the houses, they will have a different perception in comparing the peoples who are from very lower economic grade and all, they got the houses by any chance, so their perception will be different. The second important factor to be considered with regard to the continuum is to bear the minds the nature of population. This is necessary because a continuum of a housing adequacy may exist for the group or the place, but may have no relevance in another place or group, because you see what I'm telling. So means the matter is that if I'm measuring the things in a particular group or a particular space, so it will be also different from the if I measure the same at another place in the group. So that is also very important things, means where I'm measuring. And a scale therefore must be treated continuously and must always be viewed as a tentative when applied in a new or different situation. So it should be measured in a different kind of situation, through that otherwise we cannot proceed. But unless and until we are having a clear cut things, so we cannot have a idea on this. So any question on till now? So if you have no question, then tomorrow we will continue the second part. But I don't want to continue all the parts in one day, through that we will continue.
Sir?
Huh.
Yes, sir. Sir, for stating, we can also use product survey.
Sorry?
Sir, for product.
For product satisfaction level. Now what exactly?
Yes, sir. For product satisfaction, and we can also include it as a part of questionnaire and survey also.
Yes, because you see, if you want to suppose what exactly the different companies are doing, whenever they are launching any product, so they are also doing, because you see, I will just give an example. Suppose when Maggie is being introduced in the country, it is way back in, I think, from the very beginning of early 80s. Early 80s, Maggie is being introduced. And if you look into the taste quality of the Maggie of early 80s and the Maggie of today, there is huge differences within these 40 years. And because they do various research, they used to do, they take the people's perception to that their product, every product. Whenever a company is launching any product, so prior to launching, they used to also do survey. But once they launch, they used to do the mostly they do adopt the scaling techniques for evaluating their product. to how much people are satisfied with their products, and based on the this people's level of satisfaction, so they used to rectify their product. Anybody? Anybody else? Okay, if you have no question, we'll continue in the next class.